Good morning, and thanks for staying tuned to the schedule of programs right here on Rapid TV, channel 176 on Star Times. And you are welcome to today's edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving socio-political general interest show, Korero. We apologize, we're starting slightly behind schedule. Just needed to cross the T's and dot the I's. Well, today's show is going to be focused on the state of the nation, especially as President Tinubu's administration is facing growing agitations across the country over the sudden spike in fuel prices that happened last Tuesday, September 3rd. Of course, many Nigerians would say they weren't expecting it, but it was always lurking in the shadows. Well, of course, it sparked outrage with fuel costs rising from about 600 to about 855. Well, to be honest, at least I bought at 895. Yeah, yeah, this morning. So, and I hear in other parts of the country, it's 1,000, between 1,000 and 1,002, and even higher in some locations. But before we get into the matter of the state of the nation this morning, let me remind you, as always, that the show is live and interactive on all our social media platforms. So you can't be part of the conversation simply by following and liking Rapid TV on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter, on IG, Instagram, LinkedIn, and even on TikTok. Remember, we are at official Rapid TV. And as I like to say, even when the show goes off the air, the conversation continues online. So you can be part of our growing online community and get the opportunity to air your view. In fact, I'm giving you permission to vent on social media. X has been exploding in the last couple of days, especially with the developments that had happened in the build-up to the weekend. And of course, this week, no doubt, promises to be pregnant. Let me use that word, pregnant. Okay, so let's start by seeing what the front pages of the newspapers are saying this morning, especially after an eventful weekend. In fact, yesterday I had my eyes full with the various front pages of various newspapers across the country. It was all about the increase in the pump price of petrol, premium motor spirit, and of course, other developments. Let's not forget, Mr. President had been out away from the country in China, trying to woo international investors to, be part of, to woo international investors to come to Nigeria, see Nigeria as an investment destination. You understand, and with all that is happening, one wonders, will international investors truly find Nigeria a worthy place to put their money, with the hope of getting a return on investment. So first, let's look at the pages of the newspaper this morning. Let's see what the newspaper. This is the Daily Times. Yes, I've got history with the Daily Times, so I'm kind of happy that we're starting with the Daily Times. Tinubu's government will completely set Nigerians on fire. This comment is coming from the presidential flag bearer of the People's Democratic Party at the 2023 general elections, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Of course, he has talked about the fact that the recent increase in value-added tax, VAT, is also going to set the nation on fire. You can see the writer there, urge President, his advisors to redirect efforts to crafting sustainable solutions to systemic shocks affecting the economy. And then below you see SEC, that's warns against capital market infractions to commence enforcement. Now, that just tells you that virtually every aspect of our economy, is facing some reverting effect of the order. Now, looking down just below that, the picture of the police officers in parade, you see Serap to Tinubu, reverse fuel price hike immediately, probe NNPCL. Now, this statement by Serap is not new. There were a lot of reactions over the weekend with regards to the recent increase in the pump price of premium motor spirit, popularly known as petrol. Okay, that's the Daily Times, and now is first news. Now, first news. Exodus in the ranks. 196 soldiers file for retirement as concerns grow in the military. Now, some of you may have missed this story. It actually made the rounds, I think, on Friday, where the news broke that a large number of military personnel had resigned and were moving to be recruited in the British and Ukrainian army. And it's surprising. Army refutes Matt's exit rumors, reaffirms soldiers' right to voluntary departure. Of course, that's a nice way of putting it, that the soldiers have the right to voluntarily depart the service. So that is one of the big developments. But of course, this was overshadowed by the fact that everybody's talking about the recent increase in the pump price of petrol, and of course the things that have been happening within the government and cabinet of Mr. President. Okay, so let's go to the next one, the Guardian. And this is apt because I'm a parent, and on our breakfast morning show, Rapid Dawn this morning, the team of Cynthia and Ugochukwu Madumere had conversations revolving around the resumption of school. Parents groan as fares spike by over 70% amid dropout concerns, and that is that is a major concern, and it will probably be the top part of the topic of conversation across board this week at different levels in all homes, because it's not just about the fact that the kids have resumed school. It's about the fact that even the schools have come up with innovative ways to ensure that they remain in business. And what that simply means is that school fees have gone high. Yes, the inflation. Yeah, and you can see that cartoon there where the father is dragging the son to school, and with a heavy bag on his shoulder. Inflation. I can relate. And so do many Nigerians. Atiku, HURWA, Flair, Tinubu's plan to raise value-added tax, that's VAT, one of devastating consequences. Now, I know Nigerians are like, are we in living hell? Petrol has gone up. Now this same administration is about to increase value-added tax. Now, don't forget, one of the big stories making the round, and I'm sure we'll get to see it. Yes, I can see it just below. Tanker explosion claims 48 lives, 50 cattle in Nigeria. POS operators insist on court ruling amid CAC threats. And then don't forget, the government has also asked POS operators, to add some value-added tax of 15 naira. So now the average Nigerian is like, where do we go from here? NLC vows to tackle graft, physical indiscipline by politicians. And we're waiting to see that because the leadership of organized labor have been meeting, especially after the recent increase in the pump price of petrol. The generality of Nigerians, both workers and non-workers, are waiting to hear what would be the position of the NLC and organized labor in the coming days. Okay, so let's see the next paper. Daily Independence. Okay. VAT, fuel price hike, brazen inferno that may consume Nigerians. Article, we saw that on, I think it was the Daily Times, says increase to deepen cost of living crisis. Yes, I mean, that is one of the biggest conversations on the front pages of most national dailies this morning. Of course, at the top right-hand side, you can see Serap gives Tinubu ultimatum to reverse petrol price hike. Serap gives Tinubu ultimatum to reverse petrol price hike. These are the major conversations and talking points, even in conventional media, social media, traditional media, and of course, in homes across Nigeria. These are the talking points. In the leadership, we have pump price, probe NNPCL now, Serap tells Tinubu. Then let's go to the gaping headline. It says poverty, ignorance, boosting organ trafficking in Nigeria. That is how desperate Nigerians are getting to be able to keep their head above water in this very, very tough economic situation. Naira devaluation, subsidy removal, cripple manufacturers. So basically, you look at the front pages of our national dailies this morning, it's more of a tale of woes and all negative, negative, negative. It's sad that we're starting the week in this note. Let's see the next newspaper and the metrics. Now it says Senate postpones public hearing for NNPC Dangote orders. Of course, let's not forget the quagmire or debacle between Dangote refineries and the NNPC is still very much in the air. And of course, $4 million debt. Professor Akinyemi warns Nigerians over Chinese deals. Now, this is part of the fallout of Mr. President's visit to China. Don't forget, most of the reports coming from Mr. President's visit to China suggest that he's been able to sign some deals, going to some agreement with the Chinese government. But some individuals are already raising red flags, saying, hey, we already have a $4 million debt, and Professor Akinyemi warns Nigeria over Chinese deals. So there is need for Mr. President to really take a step back and critically look into some of those deals he has entered into with the Chinese government. Let's see the next paper. The Nation. Now, The Nation, investors take federal government $500 million bond to oversubscription. Experts project 100% intake. Final annulment to beneficiaries this week. So that's some positive news in terms of seeing how the government is using financial instruments to generate liquidity within the system. So at least finally we have something to smile about. Nigerian Chinese firms sign $1 billion deal, if I'm looking at that correctly, and projects. Of course, that now goes back to the red flag that was raised by Professor Akinyemi. Of course, in the front page, on the front page of the metrics. Nigerian Chinese firms sign $1 billion iron ore to steel project. Yes, some positive, yeah, the nation giving us some positive news as far as the front page is concerned. Okay, all right. So let's look at the next paper, the Punch newspaper. Now, the Punch newspaper, marketers plan petrol import as NMPCL Dangote talks drag. Now, this is definitely not positive news for considering the current situation Nigerians are faced with. Now, let's not forget, before the increase in the pump price of petrol, there were already queues across the country as a result of poor supply. Of course, the NNPC came out with some statement trying to explain, give excuse of the weather and some other logistical problems that made it difficult to ensure that there was adequate and effective supply across the country. So on the Punch, it says marketers plan petrol import as NNPCL Dangote talks drag. Petrol dealers to meet Dangote overpricing. Uncertainty over NNPC's September 15 PMS lifting. And Hypeman laments as NNPC delays supply at depots. Pump price nears 1,000, I beg your pardon, 1,250 in states. Wow. So already, I think during the weekend, NLC has said we shouldn't be surprised that at some point Nigerians may just have to buy fuel at as much as between 5,000 to 7,000 naira per liter. Crazy, right? Okay, so let's see the next newspaper so that we can wrap up this part of the show and move on to the conversation proper. Daily News Hub. Tinubu's ex-postman, Ajuri Ngelale, makes best-selling, many best-setting scenes. Interesting. Of course, over the weekend, Tinubu's former spokesman, Ajuri Ngelale, resigned from Mr. President's cabinet. And conversations are still on as to what exactly has happened, what led to the resignation of Ajuri Ngelale. But most important, still looking at Daily News Hub, Serap to Tinubu reverse petrol price hike. Probe NNPC or risk legal action. Of course, this is not the first time Serap has more or less threatened Mr. President with legal action. If I remember correctly, Serap and Mr. President and his administration are in court over a number of issues. So that's the Daily News Hub. Let's see, is there one more? So that we can wrap it up on this part of the show. All right, so those are the front pages of the newspapers this morning, and it's interesting what those newspapers. Thank God for the nation that has given us some positive developments. So at least we're starting the week on a not so negative note. There is so much to look forward to. Okay, of course, this is happening especially as millions of Nigerians struggle to cope with the skyrocketing cost of goods and services, which are directly linked to the high price of petrol. Now, President Bola Tinubu is set to overhaul, he's set to overhaul his cabinet, a move seen as a bid to reinvigorate his administration with fresh talent and ideas. Now, according to reports, right, the president's decision is motivated by the need to address the underperformance that has plagued certain members of the current cabinet. Now, fresh off his diplomatic visit to China, President Tinubu is expected to finalize the dissolution of his cabinet before his departure to the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Now, the timing suggests a calculated move to clear any domestic distractions before engaging in international discussions. Because, I mean, if you look at all that has transpired over the weekend in the presidency, it doesn't send good signals. Now, to the matter of the state of the nation. Now, following the recent increase in the pump price of petrol and the prevailing food supply challenges gripping the country, economists have warned that the number of Nigerians below the poverty line may soon exceed the 104 million shock projected by the World Bank last year, 2023. Now, the Global Bank had said the poverty rate in the country increased to 46% in 2023, representing 104 million poor Nigerians. Disclosing this in its Nigeria Development Update released in December last year, the World Bank said Nigeria's poverty rate had risen from 40% in 2018 to 46% as the number of poor people increased from 79 million to 104 million. Now, the report said the number of poor people in urban areas and more exposed to inflation increased from 13 million to 20 million, while the number of poor people in rural areas rose to 84 million from 67 million within the same period. Now, the World Bank had predicted that the increase in poverty rate would be undone by the economic reform shock of President Bola Tinubu from the beginning of 2024 till 2026. So, if you're thinking we'll be out of the woods anytime soon, based on that projection, I think we need to rethink it, okay? Now, according to experts, the recent increase in the pump price of premium motor spirit, PMS, popularly known as petrol, by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC Limited, from 586 naira to 897 naira will further weaken the economy by driving inflation up, causing businesses to shut down and pushing more citizens into poverty, economic experts have indicated. Now, in separate reaction to the new pump price of petrol, stakeholders, including organized private sector, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and small business owners, amongst other, outlined the many negative implications of the recent price increase. Now, the interest groups advised the government to quickly return fuel subsidy, provide alternative energy sources and transportation options to avoid the risk of completely driving the economy aground, even as the new policies begin to take a painful toll on Nigerians. So, just to give you an understanding of what the numbers look like, because when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the current situation in which you and I find ourselves, we need to understand what the numbers are saying. So this is probably the best comparative analysis I have seen so far since the recent increase in the pump price of premium motor spirit, PMS, popularly known as petrol by the NNPCL. Let's look at this comparative analysis.
So it's official. Fuel is now 855 naira per liter. Wahala deal. And it will not stop here. This is testing the market. It will eventually get to 1,400 naira. Mark my word. After doing that, they have commissioned this useless newspaper, The Cable, to come and compare what other people are buying in other places to make it look like we should even be thanking the government because we are buying it cheap. According to them, in the UK, it is sold for 2,973 naira. In Cameroon, 2,270. In Canada, 2,101. In South Africa, 2,035 naira. In China, 1,939 naira. Blah 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 blah. In Nigeria, they say 770, even though it's 855 now. You see, these fools, what they don't understand is that the problem is not the price. The problem here is the affordability. That is what we're after. We don't care how much they sell it. We care about whether or not we are able to afford it. In those countries that they mentioned, they can afford it, even Pujara. That is why they are not complaining. So, and they got, affordability is what affects your cost of living. All right. Now, it is the government's duty to make sure that the cost of living is bearable or for the common man. Otherwise, they have failed. So what we're going to do now is to look at these countries and look at how easy it is for them to afford these things. So we're going to look at, because of time, we're going to look at Canada, UK, China, and South Africa. Let's forget Cameroon there because we cannot be comparing ourselves to Cameroon. If we are really ambitious, we should not be comparing ourselves to Cameroon. So in Nigeria, monthly minimum wage is 70,000 naira, even though they are yet to implement it. Though. But let's even calculate that 70,000 naira. You know what 70,000 naira means per hour? It's around 435 naira per hour. You need to work like 2.5 hours in Nigeria before you afford 1 liter of fuel in Nigeria. Now let's go to the UK. First of all, look at the current exchange rate before we go to the UK. Since they are mad, they are comparing prices in other places in Naira. So we're going to compare their living wage in Naira as well. In the UK, for 21 and above, 11.44 pounds. That is approximately 23,000 naira per hour. So even if you say, what about tax? They are collecting tax. Oh yeah, let's even say the tax is 50%. They still have more than 11,000 naira left per hour. And if it is sold 2,973 naira in the UK, 11,000 something can buy up to 5 liters. Just 1 hour. In Nigeria, you need to work more than 2 hours before you afford 1 liter. Now let's look at Canada. Canada, minimum wage hourly per hour is around $17, right? That's approximately 28,000 naira. So if a liter of fuel is sold for 2,101 naira, then an hour wage can buy you up to 10 liters or more. Let's look at South Africa. Minimum hourly wage there is around 27 rands, and 27 rands is around $1.53. And if you convert it to naira, that is around 2,481 naira. So if fuel is sold for 2,035 naira in South Africa per liter, that means 1 hour wage can get you that, and you have change safe. Now, minimum wage in China per hour, $3.7 per hour. $3.7 per hour. So if you convert to naira, that will give you approximately 6,000 naira per hour. So in China, if a liter is sold for 1,939 naira, you'll be able to buy at least 3 liters for 1 hour wage. But in Nigeria, if you collect your 1 hour wage, which is around 400 and something naira, you need to add extra money to buy a liter. So it will take you 2.5 hours in Nigeria to be able to afford a liter. That is what they are not telling you, because they are fools and they believe that everybody is a fool as well. So that's why they are using our intelligence. Make things affordable for us. That's what we ask for. And the money you are wasting in government is enough to make things easy for us. But you people are just wicked.
I apologize for some of the civil language used in that video. But let's not look at the messenger, but let's look at the message. As far as I'm concerned, that is probably the best comparative analysis I have seen so far since the recent increase in the pump price of premium motor spirit, PMS, popularly known as petrol, by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, from 586 naira to 897 naira. Well, just to remind you, in case you just tuned in, that it's still Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political, and general interest show, Korero. And of course, the show is live and interactive on all our social media platforms. We are streaming live on our website, www.rbnradiotv.com, on Facebook. And of course, you can also get to interact and engage with us by following and liking Rapid TV on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter, IG, Instagram, LinkedIn, and even on TikTok. We are at official Rapid TV. Today on the show, we are looking at the current happenings within the country, with particular bias for the recent hike in the pump price of premium motor spirit, popularly known as petrol, basically, which has affected the state of the nation, because experts say we are plunging more Nigerians into poverty. Well, President Bola Tinubu has defended his government's tough economic reforms, saying they are necessary for Nigeria's development. Speaking to Nigerians in China, he emphasized the importance of discipline and commitment to national service, citing China's disciplined society as an example. Do we have similarities with China? We need to do that research. Well, meanwhile, civil society organizations, CSOs, numbering over 1,000 under the auspices of the Coalition of Civil Society Organizations, have faulted President Bola Tinubu's economic team over current economic challenges and called for its immediate reconstitution. Now, expressing deep concern and worry over the state of the economy and escalating fuel prices compounding the hardship of Nigerians despite the recent protests. Don't forget, August, it was End Bad Governance, End Hunger protests. We are still not recovered from the aftermath of that protest. Now, the group said President Tinubu must act now to avert disintegration. The group said the current situation across the country has cast doubt on the competence of Tinubu's economic team and called for urgent review. Well, it is not just the CSOs that have been talking or have called for Mr. President to take a step back and look at the big picture and reconstitute his economic team. Well, guess what? Even members of the leading party, the All Progressive Congress, are beginning to also talk to Mr. President to say, boss, at least hear the plight of people. Let's hear from one-time national chairman of the All Progressive Congress, former governor of Edo State, one-time labor leader, popularly known as Oshobaba, in the person of Comrade Adams Oshomole.
Liberal economic policies have failed Nigeria. I want to be able to see the president saying, yes, Africa growth, we have disagreements, but I am elected to uphold the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not of Africa Charter. We would relate with other countries. The days must be over when we talk of Africa as the centerpiece of our foreign policy. A way to one in which Nigeria and the welfare and the well-being of Nigeria is the central focus of Nigeria foreign policy. If it is not good for Nigeria, we will do it. How can you subscribe to something that you cannot participate in? How can you have a free market where you only buy but you have nothing to sell? And the only thing we have to sell is crude. And that crude is not determined competitively. It is determined by some forces in the West, whether the president of US is sick or whether the publish of data, it shows that economy is slowing down, that affects the price of oil, whether China is growing or China is slowing down, and all of that. And so the result is that today, we are importers of, from the lowest second-hand time, we started borrowing. And to encourage us to borrow more, economists tell us about how much you can borrow in relation to GDP. They'll always have some statistics as if this were in the holy documents. And so we borrow to a point that they now came back to say, you have overborrowed. And for us to support you, you must devalue your currency. You must float it. Thus subsidize consumption. And when you devalue your home, goods and services produced at home will be cheaper, and therefore you have greater export opportunities. Because Nigeria-made goods, we find cheaper prices overseas, and foreign goods will be too expensive for the natives to buy, since we are now in our native land. And because they can't buy, we've got to have a more realistic balance of trade. And that is how around 1978 or so, the Naira was devalued from where it was 1 Naira to 1.5 US dollars. When I went to UK to pay my school fees in the UK, I got my check from, I believe, Barclays Bank, which is now Union Bank. And I said, if indeed there is such thing as a visible hand, why do we elect a president? Why do we elect a governor? The market, by its nature, is not accountable except to the buyer and the seller. But we elect governments that are accountable, that we should be held responsible for our collective well-being. And so when I heard him today say what he said, I said, then I'm not exactly crazy. So I am going to start my conversation, not a lecture, just a discussion the way we used to do under the village tree, you know, because my father was is the greatest teacher, and my mom, assistant teacher. Between the two, everything I have, they are responsible. I think that if we take a critical look at where we're coming from, Nigeria was at its best when, I believe sensibly, and when we celebrate China, we just look at the outcome without looking at the system that produced that outcome. The Chinese also go to the World Bank. They also go to the IMF meeting. They listen. When they finish, they say thank you. They go back to Beijing and do what they call capitalism with Chinese characteristics. The interest rate is not market driven. The rate you change your money in hotel is the same rate you change it in the bank. I know it because I have been there. That is not market forces. That is state regulation. And when a state functionally abuse power, they execute. They kill. And so, without following Western models, China has become, over a period of 15 to 20 years, they had double-digit growth consistently, not based on market liberal models. When Washington insists that the Chinese currency is overvalued, the Chinese reply, it is not the foreigner who will tell us the value of our currency. In Nigeria, our people will go to the World Bank and IMF, they will tell us what they think we are. And we celebrate that fifth rate, what do they call them now? They have these funny, not funny names, well-known names in West, that they have given us B+, B-, B+++. What the hell does it matter? We are to rate who we are, not foreigners. And until we return back to this homegrown policy and damn the consequences with the world, because they are going to fight us, I do not think that romancing with them is going to deliver us. No, it will not. And they will turn around to accuse us of corruption. And yet every kobo stealing and kept abroad is in their banks. But they are not corrupt. If we recognize that we were at our best when the Nigerian state make policies that are informed by the Nigerian condition, then let us revert back to that. If we don't, free market, these liberal, neoliberal economic policies that Amadi was speaking about, can never deliver prosperity to the majority of our people. It is based on the principle, whether stated or implied, survival of the fittest. If you are poor, it is your fault. If you survive, you are intelligent. And we have smart guys who manipulate the back.
Adams Oshomole, former national chairman of the All Progressive Congress, former governor Edo State, former NLC president. Now, he makes interesting conversation, and some school of thought will agree with the position of, will I say, elder statesman, now senator, yes, Senator Adams Oshomole. So, the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, has expressed strong disapproval of the recent fuel price hike introduced by President Bola Tinubu's administration, calling it a betrayal of the trust of Nigerians. The union has accused the government of implementing policies that severely impact the working class and the poor. The NLC had previously agreed to the 70,000 naira national minimum wage based on the assurance that fuel prices would remain stable. Now, we did give you a comparative analysis of what 70,000 naira minimum wage is per hour. Remember, good. So, With the sudden increase in the pump price of premium motor spirit, PMS, the union feels betrayed. One of the reasons for accepting 70,000 naira as the national minimum wage was the understanding that the pump price of PMS would not be increased, the NLC stated, adding that the amount was already insufficient. The situation remains tense as Nigerians await the union's next move amidst rising economic challenges. And don't forget, the president of the NLC, Joe Ajero, has been under scrutiny of late because of his hard stance, especially in terms of the economic policies of the current administration. But let's hear Joe Ajero, and when we come back, we'll wrap up today's edition of Korero. Do stay with us.
So the president gave us two options. That I can pay you 250, and if you allow me to increase the pump price of petroleum products. And you say, you are Ajero. On my first day, I said subsidy is gone. Yeah. And since that time, you have refused to allow me to increase more. So where will I get the money to pay you minimum wage? If you allow me, I pay you that. If not, take 62. I'm giving you 1 hour to talk. Let me stay in my office so that we can conclude this meeting. And we say, no, we are not meeting here. We are joined for 1 week. And we went back and looked at the larger implication of we collecting 250 and another increase in pump price of petroleum products. So we went back to say, Mr. President, these are two issues. We are here for minimum wage. We are not able to discuss the issue of pump price or attaching it as a condition for increasing. That would be too selfish of the labor movement. So it was there that we opened the discussion and got to 70,000.
But is concerned, the issue of pump price was not necessarily a precondition to accepting 70,000 naira. It was basically looking at the larger picture and trying to prevent an increase in the pump price, but that was inevitable anyway. Well, on its part, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has attributed the fluctuating price of premium motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, to the foreign exchange liquidity. Well, this was disclosed by the Executive Vice President of the Downstream at NNPC, Adedapo Segun, during a television interview last Thursday. Now, Segun explained that the deregulation of the petroleum sector, as stipulated by the Petroleum Industry Act, PIA of 2021, has allowed prices of PMS to be determined by unrestricted free market forces. Now, according to him, the exchange rate had played a significant role in shaping the cost of petrol, a situation further exacerbated by limited access to foreign exchange. Disagreeing, though, on the other hand, political economist Patutome has described the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited as one of the most opaque and unreliable institutions, adding that the government must purge the organization to be able to deal with its issues. Utomi, who was speaking on the recent hike in fuel pump prices, said the tight casing of subsidy had put the country in the current state we find ourselves, pointing out that while countries like the United States and Europe subsidize for production, the country, Nigeria in particular, had engaged in subsidized consumption for pleasure without proper management of resources. He stated that the cleanup of the NNPC would reduce the corruption in the subsidy arrangement by 60%, adding that he would ensure the cleanup it would ensure the cleanup if given the job. So he has said, look, I'm not just preferring the solutions, I'm also putting myself out there. Give me the job and I will get it done. Well, time is not really our friend. And so we are getting to that point where we have to begin to wrap up today's show. Of course, it would be nice if we could take one or two calls, but time not really our friend. But remember, the show is live and interactive, and when it goes off the air, the conversation continues online. So hit us up on all our social media platforms with your reaction to the current state of the nation, especially as the numbers show that Nigerians are being plummeted further down into poverty. So to wrap up this edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political, and general interest show, I leave you with this thought, especially as pressure mounts on the federal government to address the economic strain brought about by the drastic fuel price hike. It is about time that the government comes clean about the questionable dealings in the nation's oil and gas industry. Nigerians deserve to know the truth about what is happening in the oil and gas sector. The government must be transparent in its dealings and prioritize, just as Senator, I don't know how to call him now, is it Comrade Senator or Senator Comrade Adams Oshomole has said, prioritize the welfare of the citizens and well-being of your people above corporate profits or political interest. Now, the hardship faced by Nigerians today is very undeniable, and it can be traced to mismanagement, lack of transparency, and poor economic policies. So the government must act decisively and in good faith. Yes, Nigerians are calling for transparency in the oil and gas sector and the broader economy in general. It is time the government embrace global best practice in economic management, particularly in the oil and gas industry, where so much of Nigerians' fate lies. Like, again, Senator Comrade Adams Oshomole said, we don't sell anything. The only thing we have to sell is crude oil. Crude oil. So the stakes are too high, and the sufferings of Nigerians is too great for the government to continue on its current trajectory. If it truly has the interest of the people at heart, it must act swiftly and decisively to address these concerns and provide relief to Nigerians who desperately need it. Otherwise, the economy or economic hardship will continue to worsen, and the trust between the government and its people will erode beyond repair. That's, like they say, a word is enough for the wise. Those are my little words of wisdom. At this point, I want to say thank you for allowing us be a part of your morning and, of course, building your anticipation for what promises to be a very interesting week as we continue to monitor developments and the state of the nation. From the entire Korero team, we say, have a wonderful day. We'll be back tomorrow. Trust us to keep our ears to the ground and our searchlight beam on developments as they evolve. I am Nkamian John the Beloved, also known as the Controversial, signing out.